Hey guys, welcome back to T-Bones Tech. Today's my review over the new Canon T8i. I've owned this camera for around 3 months now before making this review, so I've had a ton of time to really find all the upsides and the downsides of it. I know there's a lot of people out there who review a camera after owning it for 2 days or 3 days. We don't do that here on the channel. We try to use the camera for as long as we possibly can to really get a good idea of how it performs. So first off, let's talk about the specs of the T8i. It has a 24.1 megapixel APS-C size sensor, and this is the exact same sensor found in the Canon T7i. Now, I actually already made a head-to-head comparison between the T8i and the T7i, and in that video, spoiler alert, I actually showed that the image quality between both these cameras is almost identical. So if you already have the T7i and you're looking to upgrade your image quality, the T8i is probably not going to be the camera for you. But what the T8i has that the T7i doesn't have is it has a Digic 8 image processor, and that allows it to film 4K video at 24 frames per second. And that Digic 8 image processor also allows the T8i to shoot 7 frames per second. So it's going to be pretty decent for sports photography. The T8i has a great autofocusing system when looking down the mirror. It has a 45-point autofocusing system, which is very snappy and fast. But when live view, which means that you're looking down at the LCD screen to see a live view of what you're taking a picture of, the camera uses Canon's dual-pixel autofocusing to keep your subject in focus. It really does a great job of pulling faces straight into focus, and it's a really powerful tool, especially when filming video. And on this camera, you can use it when filming 1080p video at 60 frames per second and at 30 frames per second. However, you can't use it when filming 4K. When filming 4K video, the camera switches to a phase detect autofocus system, which isn't nearly as advanced as dual-pixel autofocusing system. The T8i also has a really great flip-out touch tilt screen. It has a 3-inch screen, and you can flip it out, and that's great for taking selfies, or of course for when vlogging. The screen can also articulate down, and that means you can hold the camera above your head if you're filming at a concert or something like that, and you can make sure everything is still in frame. And again, that is really cool, and I love that about the Canon Rebel series cameras. The T8i also has eye detect AF. This is really great because it keeps your subject's eye in focus. I find eye detect on this camera to work very good, and you're going to use this mostly when you're taking high quality headshots of a subject. You want that focus to be straight on the eye, and if you're shooting it handheld and if you're manually focusing, you're going to have a hard time keeping the eye in focus when shooting at fast apertures like f1.8 or even f2.8. Usually for these photos, you want the background to be nice and blurred, and again, you want that eye in focus. And usually we're shooting at anywhere from 85 millimeters to 200 millimeters. So whenever I'm taking those types of photos with this camera, I definitely make sure to switch it over to eye detect AF, and it makes a big difference. Another really cool feature on the T8i is that it has Wi-Fi and NFC, so you can use it to connect to your smartphone via Canon's Camera Connect app, and then you can actually see a live screen of what you're shooting on your phone. You can take a picture, you can change the exposure, you can do tons of really cool stuff using Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on this camera, and you can easily post those to your social networking apps and live time. It's really great, and I think you guys are going to enjoy that a lot. And that's found on basically all the new Canon Rebel cameras, and it's very good and improved on this camera as well. As far as battery life goes, I'm getting 800 plus shots on a single battery, which is definitely very impressive. Having that type of battery life allows me to go out and use this camera and take photos for hours and hours and not have to worry about the camera battery dying. And it uses the LPE17 batteries, which are very affordable. You can buy a ton of them for pretty cheap if you want to just throw an extra couple in your backpack. This camera has dual microphones for when recording video here up at the top, and honestly, they are actually pretty good considering that they are built into the camera body. They do a very good job of recording sound. And if you're just an amateur just trying to take really cool video of this for fun, these microphones are actually going to do the job. But if you're working on more serious projects, you're definitely going to want higher quality audio, and that's why this camera has a 3.5 millimeter microphone input, and that allows you to put a shotgun microphone or any other type of microphone up top on the camera, and you can easily start recording high quality audio while filming video on this camera. As far as the other inputs go, we have a wired shutter release, which nobody really uses anymore. When you have the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, you just control it with your phone, but we do still have that. I'm guessing this is probably going to go away in the next version of this camera, the Canon T10i or whatever it's going to be called. And then we have a mini HDMI and a mini USB. Not USB-C, mini USB, which is really annoying. I'm guessing, again, the next version of this camera is going to have USB-C built in, but unfortunately, we're still stuck with that old mini USB, which is really annoying. On the other side of the camera, we have our SD card slot, which is really great that it's located here on side of camera instead of underneath the camera, because when you have our camera mounted to a big heavy tripod or a tripod tripod plate. We're not going to be able to access the SD card if it's down low, but here it is in the correct location on the T8i, right over here to the side, so we can easily remove the SD card even if we are attached to a tripod. Now, something that's kind of weird on the T8i is Canon actually got rid of the automatic flash popper. So normally when the camera called for flash, it would automatically just pop it up, but here on the T8i, you have to physically just lift it up. Of course, that's not a big deal, but definitely something a little interesting, and I'm not sure why Canon got rid of the automatic flash. All the buttons and controls on this camera feel very nice and easy to use. I really love the addition of a little aperture wheel here on the back of the camera. That makes changing the aperture so much easier when looking down the mirror. You can easily move the dial with your thumb, and I love aperture wheels. I think they should be on every camera because I'm always constantly changing the aperture, and it's very annoying to have to hold down a button and then move down the shutter speed button like you have to do on the Canon T7i and all the other cameras without aperture wheels. I'm really glad that Canon brought it back with this camera. Now let's talk about the biggest downside of the Canon T8i, and that is the fact that Canon crippled its 4K video capabilities. They did give us 4K, but not in 30 frames per second. They only gave it to us in 24 frames per second, and unfortunately, when filming 4K video, Canon doesn't allow full width sensor readout, so unfortunately that means there's a 1.6 times crop factor applied to the 4K video on this camera. And the downsides of 4K on this camera doesn't stop with that 1.6 times crop factor. There is terrible rolling shutter, and if you guys want to see my full video test over the Canon T8i where I film in 1080p at 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second, and also 4K at 24 frames per second, I really demonstrate the terrible rolling shutter. Now when filming in 1080p video, we don't have any of those rolling shutter issues, but when filming 4K, we have terrible rolling shutter. And again, if you guys want to see more of that, take a look at my full video test of this camera. You guys really see how bad that gets. So in reality, 4K is a joke on this camera unless you're manually focusing it, and unless the camera is stuck on a tripod and you're filming a nice sunset or some other relatively stationary object. You're really going to want to stay away from 4K on this camera. But I think for most people, if you already have the Canon T7i, there's really not a big enough reason to upgrade to the Canon T8i here other than the 4K video, which again, really isn't worth upgrading to. The image quality on these two cameras, again, is very similar, so there's really no reason to upgrade. But if you don't have either one, the Canon T8i is an overall better camera. Like I said, the Canon T8i has this really nice aperture wheel that the T7i doesn't have. It has these really nice dual microphones and also is much faster for filming sports. Overall, the Canon T8i is a great little camera and it's capable of taking very high quality video and photos. And I think this camera is gonna be great for both intermediate and beginner photographers. But there just isn't a really big difference between this camera and the T7i. Now, as far as pricing goes, the Canon T8i is gonna run you around $750, but we definitely expect that price to drop about $50 around December time. And then of course, after December, again, it's gonna be about $50, maybe a little bit more off. But for current pricing and availability, I will leave a link in the description down below where you can check out this camera on Amazon for the most current and up-to-date price. But as of filming this video, like I said, it's $750. Now the Canon T7i is going to run you around $580 used. Now of course, when you buy used, you don't have a warranty, so it's definitely a little bit riskier. So if the T7i being $580, that means that there's only a $180 price difference between the T7i and the Canon T8i. Now if I had to choose between a used T7i and a brand new Canon T8i, honestly, I'm going to spend the extra $170 and pick up the T8i because it's brand new, it has a warranty, and it's going to last you a little bit longer. Now the next step up from the Canon T8i is the Canon 90D. This is a more professional camera, and it has a newer, more updated sensor, and it has much more professional features that we'd expect, of course, on a more professional camera. The price of this Canon 90D, however, is going to run you $1,200. The price of this Canon 90D is going to run you $1,200. So that's $450 more than the Canon T8i. And that $450 is quite a big price increase from the T8i. So honestly, the Canon T8i definitely serves a purpose, and I think it's definitely worth it to pick this camera up for any beginner or intermediate photographer who doesn't quite want to spend $1,200 for the body only of the Canon 90D, but also wants a brand new camera with a warranty and not to have to worry about buying a used camera. And like I said, overall, the Canon T8i is a fantastic camera, and if you guys get it, you're definitely not going to be disappointed. This camera should definitely last you 5 or 6 years, and like I said, you're gonna be able to take amazing photos with it, and I don't think you're gonna be disappointed with the Canon T8i. Well, that's all I got for you guys in this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give me a big thumbs up down below, and of course, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and then you won't miss any new videos that I release to this YouTube channel. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.